And welcome back to the Emerging Growth Conference. Our next presenter is Liquid Avatar Technologies, Inc., trades on the OTCQB under the symbol LQAVF and on the CSE under the symbol LQID, and focuses on the verification, management, and monetization of self-sovereign identity. Please welcome the co-founder, president, and director, David Lucatch. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Anna. Pleasure to be here and welcome everyone. I'd like to take it away and get started. So welcome to Liquid Avatar. A little bit about us, company disclaimer, we are a public company, and if you don't have time to look at this now, we'd be happy to send it to you. So what do we do? Liquid Avatar really is a new way to manage your digital identity. And what is digital identity? I mean, we're very much used to having a wallet, a key ring, and a mobile phone when we leave our home, our office, wherever we might be going, especially today. And so that wallet and key ring really provides us with identity. It tells others who we are. It gives us access to our car, our home, our office. Well, with new technology, especially blockchain technology, and we're not talking about cryptocurrency blockchain technology, we're talking about foundational blockchain technology. Digital identity is now becoming a reality. We're all seeing this every day. We're seeing new ways to manage vaccination credentials and potentially education credentials and all types of new credentials. Well, Liquid Avatar has created a way for users, being holders of credentials, issuers, those that want to issue a credential, and those that want to verify a credential, a new way to manage digital identity. And we do this in a secure, safe, controlled environment where your data, your identity belongs to you. We never sell or rent any data. And in fact, we allow you to biometrically control it, initially starting with facial recognition, so you're in charge of all your data. So who are we and what do we do? So Liquid Avatar Technologies is an organization that believes ownership of identity is a basic human right, and individuals should be the primary beneficiary of any use of their identity. You own it, it belongs to you. We want to make sure that you are in control of it. Liquid Avatar provides verified users, those that we can prove who they are, starting with biometrics, with a self-sovereign identity service to manage, control, and create benefits from your digital identity. Liquid Avatar supports issuers and verifiers, businesses in the validation of verifiable credentials. Those are credentials that have been proven and issued and are secure through a software as a service based platform. This is our team. On average, our team has well over 20 years of experience, probably closer to 25 years of experience in each of their disciplines. These are senior leaders who have had successful exits at a number of different organizations, both public and private. And we currently have a team of over 30 people worldwide. So what is digital identity and why does it matter? There's been changing consumer regulations. We're all seeing things like, if you're familiar with the General Data Protection Regulation out of Europe, or the California Consumer Protection Act, or Australia's Digital Rights Act, and Canada's PIPEDA rules. All of these regulations are changing to put the power of digital identity into the hands of consumers. There are updated and new standards of technologies. As we talked about a few minutes ago, blockchain. Blockchain has become a very pivotal technology that allows digital identity to exist. Again, for years, no one really cared about digital identity. Everyone was anonymous. But with the changing landscape for COVID and other factors, identity becomes important. There is an increasing cost in instances of identity fraud. We're seeing it rampant. We see it in, many of us have experienced identity fraud with credit cards or phones. In Canada, where I'm from, our revenue agency, the Canada Revenue Agency, was hacked earlier this year. So there has to be ways to make sure that you can prove who you are, and there is security around that situation. The introduction of digital identifiers and agent wallets, the basic foundation of digital identity, is just coming to pass now, as well as the enablement of digital verifiable credentials. The ability to take a driver's license and really make it not only electronic but digital, and be able to verify that. Other credentials, education, government, qualifications, access, all of those are now a reality, and Liquid Avatar Technologies is at the forefront of all this technology. So how big is this industry? I know that everyone talks about their industry as massive, but when you think about it, everyone online today is an absolute opportunity for digital identity. We all end up being, users of technology, and we do things online that really addresses 100% of the market. And if you think about it, there's over 5 billion people online today, or 64% of the global population. In North America alone, there's 322 million people online, or almost 90% of the population. All of those people are addressable for digital identity. And we think of digital identity as one of the core 4 services that addresses the entire market. If I asked any one of you today, do you use a browser? You'd likely say yes. Do you use search? You'd likely say yes. And in fact, we're using online communications today. Digital identity, we feel, is the 4th leg of the internet stool that makes our opportunity addressable to 100% of the market. That doesn't mean that we're looking to take 100% of the market, but this landscape is cooperative, it's collaborative, and yes, it is competitive. And we believe we're uniquely positioned to support the growing ecosystem of digital identity. So how does digital identity work? And I know that when you see this, you go, wow, looks fairly complicated. But I'm really going to simplify it for you. In digital identity, there are 3 players in the transaction. There's a holder, a user that holds a wallet with credentials, an issuer that issued those credentials. Could be a government, a financial institution, and a verifier, someone that wants to verify that you have that credential and that you're you. So let me use a simple example that we use every day. If you were to walk into a grocery store today and you'd fill your basket full of goods and then walk to the cash register, you'd likely use a credit or debit card for payment. Yes, some of us would use cash, but let's use the example of a credit card or a debit card. When you swipe that card or tap that card, you're creating this triangular relationship in a financial sense. You, as the holder of that debit or credit card, would be interacting with the verifier, the supermarket, and asking the issuer, being your financial institution, whether they will verify and authorize that transaction. So this triangle exists every day in every type of transaction we do online or in person when we use a financial instrument other than cash. And so that transaction goes around. The verifier asks the issuer, is this a good card? Do you trust the holder? And ultimately, the issuer may, in most cases, challenge the user to say, do me a favor, give me your PIN or give me a signature. Let's say it's a PIN. Give me your PIN. We believe that it is you. That is David Lucatch. Yep, Mr. Grocery Store, you can let him leave with his goods. The transaction is approved. So we're used to that. Digital identity transactions work the same way. I would have a digital wallet on a phone or mobile device. I would start a relationship with a verifier by allowing them to scan a QR code. They're asking, let's say, for my driver's license or information related to my driver's license because I'm in a liquor store or buying something online where I have to be above the age of majority. And the verifier would say, hey, we want to make sure it's you, number one. And number two, we want to make sure you're over the age, depending on jurisdiction, let's say 21. So the verifier will request that information. The assurance comes from the issuer that issued that credential, let's say the state, the driver's license, the digital driver's license. And the only question that was asked are you over 21? And you could prove it. The transaction is complete and goes. But this can not only be used with identity transactions, it can be used with access transactions. So we want to get you into an arena, but we've got to prove that you have a COVID credential. Or a best example I like to use is, let's say a doctor needs to prove, one, that they are who they say they are, two, that they have access to that hospital, and three, that they have the qualification to perform the services they do inside that hospital. That can all be verified at the point of entry every time a doctor enters a hospital. So we can be assured that the people are who they say they are, they do have access, and they do have qualifications. And that can be done for students taking tests, government services, gaming services, e-commerce transaction. I'm sure you can imagine that if we could verify every transaction online for e-commerce, let's say over a certain limit, the amount of identity theft or credit card theft would drop. In North America alone, it's a $12 billion issue, would drop dramatically, and credit card rates might in fact come down just because there are less costs of service. So we see digital identity as not an if, but a today and a future item that is really taking hold because it is more efficient, more effective, and reduce a ton of costs. And we're already doing things on our phone and our mobile devices, so why shouldn't we manage our identity? And I will come to some of the questions that you're thinking about, like, what if I lose my phone? I will come to those kind of things as well. So just want to give you a little bit of our qualifications. So as I said, we're quite a senior team. We've all been around for many years. We belong to some of the most outstanding foundations, ecosystems, and public utilities out there. Trust Over IP Foundation, we're a voting member and a member of the steering committee and co-chairs of a number of committees. We belong to ID 2020. Cardia, we're a founding member and a steering committee member. The Linux Foundation. We belong to ecosystems like Lumetics for healthcare, the Good Health Pass for COVID Pass. And we're creating our own foundational ecosystem for the issuance of credentials. We also belong to public utilities. Why are these important? Because these are the backbone of the blockchain on the internet that allows us to create, manage, and control some of these credentials. Our situation is these are private nodes. And why are they private and not public? Because we want to ensure that everyone on the system is a provable individual and not a fake bot or hack. So how does this all work? Well, for consumers, we have a Liquid Avatar mobile app, and this is available through the Google Play and the Apple App Store. And really, we start with a very, very simple process. We want to have one user and one account. We want to make sure that we have no duplicates, no fakes, no hacks. So when you start off with our mobile app, we ask you for a photo, which turns into your biometrics, a map of your face, and an email address. That way we can contact you. But now we know that regardless of the email, username, or password that you might use, and again, we'll come to passwords, at the end of the day, it's only one user because you've only got one face. So if you go to open a second account, you can't because we verified you. As we go down this path and you need more verification, we use standard authorized bank-grade KYC and AML procedures. That's know your customer and anti-money laundering procedures, same as you would find at a bank or a brokerage firm or government institution, and other authentications to prove that you are you. But we start off very simply allowing you to enter the system, which is a simple face recognition, a liveness recognition. And I will say at this point, none of this information is ever stored on a phone. It's accessible through your phone, but it's stored in the cloud, in the IBM cloud. The reason we do that is if your phone is lost, compromised, stolen, none of that data is ever on your phone. And because it's biometrically controlled, only you have access to it. And I will come back to that because we are creating what we call data guardianship, which will allow you to assign for a minor, or in the event that you want a seconder on your account, something was to happen to you, people could get to your data, authorized people could get to your data. But at the end of the day, it's really about one user and one account. Simplifying and trying to make it as simple as you do in the real world in the digital world. Because identity at the end of the day is not just who you are, it's the things that you do and the places that you go. Think of all the things that connect your identity: government, events, passwords, workplace, e-commerce, health, travel, social gaming. All of this makes you who you are. We have systems with both our own and complementary and cooperative with third parties that allow you to store your credentials how you want to store them and biometrically, so you're in control. We also have programs for issuers, so those that want to issue a credential. Now, what makes us unique is that we have a system that allows us to create third-party wallets for companies inside their apps. So if you have a social gaming app, a sports app, a hospitality app, we can create credentials. These are fundamental, proofs of identity or proofs of access inside someone else's wallet. And you'll have access to that through Liquid Avatar or through that app. Why is that important? Because we can start to replace things like passwords. Imagine all those passwords you need to remember and all those usernames. Well, if you have biometrics, your face, and a credential, sort of like and a credential, I think I explained, but a credential is sort of like an electronic card that only you can have access to because of your biometrics. You don't have to remember passwords anymore. They can become a thing of the past. And your digital credential and or verifiable credential and your face gains you access to all these different things at work, home, and at play. And by the way, this is a SaaS model, which a third party would use and pay us a recurring revenue fee. We're also working on verifier programs. So if you think about the last leg, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And we believe that it's going to be important for, if you're going to issue verifiable credentials, if you're going to issue digital credentials, that not only can you hold them and people can issue them, but you can access them and use them everywhere, whether it's at a venue that uses a tablet or a payment device or a smartphone or a kiosk. We're making technology that makes these digital credentials, not only our own, but the industry-wide credentials, accessible everywhere you go. Simply as easy as using a current credit card or debit card, you'll be able to use credentials. And again, this is a software as a service with recurring revenue. What is our key to growth and acquisition, especially on the user side? We have a short, a mid, and a long game. First part is engagement. We're working with campuses in the US. We're working with large organizations to bring their users on board and provide them with free services. A user never pays for the Liquid Avatar service. It's always free to a user. In our SaaS models, yes, there are recurring fees. But in this model, a user never pays any fees. Engagement and stickiness and retention. We're using proven methodology to ensure that we bring on users in large volumes. And I will say that it has been shown recently by valuations and investments that users are valued at somewhere between $250 and $1,000 on a lifetime valuation model. So you can imagine every time we bring a user on board, there is an opportunity to grow not only on a user base, but on an enterprise value base very quickly. So how do we drive revenue? This is a really important part. We look at the three markets. How do we look at holders, verifiers, and issuers? With holders, we have digital collectibles, your avatars, other things that you get for free initially, but you can upgrade and buy. There is no necessity to do so, but in our digital collectibles in our marketplace, you can upgrade. And we have major designers that are coming on board and other things like NFTs, which you might have heard of, that allow us to create additional revenue. We already have our own Visa program. We've been authorized by Visa International, and we're currently in Canada and negotiating expansion into the US to have our own Visa card, because we give our services away to consumers for free. How we make money is by introducing those verified users, those real users, to opportunities from known vendors. Again, we never sell or rent data, but we're able to connect the two parties through our cabin card and our offers section. And we have cashback offers from almost 600 vendors, major vendors who have already come on board our program, because they know we have real users, and real users are more valuable to them than social media users that might be fake. So it's really important. And for our verifiers and our issuers, where we have SaaS models and recurring revenue model, we can work with facilities, direct issuers, and third parties to create unique opportunities for them to power their communities using our technologies. So it's not only about our own Liquid Avatar technologies, it's also about white labeling our technologies for others to use. And these methods have been successfully used by many companies, including probably one of the most prolific ones that use this type of methodology, which is Google. We all use search every day, but we never pay for search. Merchants pay for search. But Google doesn't create all the data on the internet. They don't create the infrastructure on the internet. They take that information and they organize it in a timely and usable fashion for users to gain value from. That's what we've done as well. So some people have called us the Google of identity. I don't know if that's the right moniker or label for us. That's not really one that we want to promote, but it's a simple way of understanding us. What we do is we aggregate a lot of information in digital identity. We create some of our own, and we put it together in an easy way for consumers to embrace. And we know this is a growing market. You know, you might hear it first here today, but I'm telling you, 3 years from now, you'll go, digital identity. I remember when I listened to that presentation from Liquid Avatar, and they were right on the money. And I'll tell you why I believe this is because in 1998, I helped the Canadian banks develop a way for consumers to shop online by inputting their credit cards. And everybody told me that no one would ever shop online. And I'm sure everyone out there today has done some kind of transaction online. We believe digital identity, again, is the fourth leg of the stool and will be the massive growth opportunity in the industry because everyone online is addressable for digital identity. In our sectors, we have identity services, sponsorship, retail, tourism, gaming, hospitality, e-commerce, retail. Any industry that would gain value from knowing that their users are real, we can support. We believe we have a massive growth opportunity here. Now, it's interesting. When we started this business as a private company a few years ago, no one understood digital identity, but we put a stake in the ground. And to be frank, it's a stake we've never had to move. In all the businesses that I've been in over the years, we've always had to pick up a stake, move it somewhere else as the market changed. We put a stake in the ground almost 4 years ago, and we have not moved it. And what we're finding is that almost 77% of people are extremely or somewhat interested in digital identity. And that is a growing number. It's not a decreasing number, it's a growing number. And what are the use cases? I've talked about this a little bit, but healthcare, identity fraud reduction, online gaming and esports, making sure that players are who they say they are, travel, hospitality. You know, that is a huge industry. As people get back to traveling, people are going to want to know that you are vaccinated, or you have the credentials to be able to enter a country or visit a place. This is really important. It's not going to be paper-based. It's not going to be electronic-based. It will be digital or verifiable credential going forward. And we're seeing that information in the news every day. Purchase validation for e-commerce, reducing identity theft in e-commerce, you know, by proving that you are you. Information and data services, affinity groups and memberships, making sure those that are entitled to services are getting them. Education. We all know that education now is a hybrid program. There's a lot of online courses and even professional courses, not just for students of a young age, but professional and qualification and validation, making sure that you have those credentials. Government, password access validation. This is a massive market. You know, organizations spend millions of dollars monthly servicing changing passwords for their organization every week or every month. The amount of customer service and support is unbelievable. Biometrically controlled, verifiable identity credentials for passwords is a massive opportunity. Again, we power third-party apps and platforms and partnerships with our digital wallet program and payment processors, ATM, and kiosks. This industry is ripe for all kinds of services. Again, we're not looking at taking the entire industry by storm. But if you take even 322 million people and you multiply that by a valuation of somewhere between $250 and $1,000, and we take a small slice of that, we have a huge opportunity for growth. And this is some of the things that we like to show you as some industry information. You may have heard of Clear. Clear just is an identity company that just filed for an IPO. Trulio, they just raised $400 million as a private company, a Canadian private company, in new funding. Some of these are banking platforms. And again, remember, we have our own Visa card program. So we have the ability to do our own banking program, as well as work with other banks and financial institutions, because all our users are verified. They're real. That is so important. And if you look at where some of the multiples are coming from in the payments transaction processing, this is where people are known to be real people. The POS solutions, loyalty, our verification type of programs are getting a 52-time multiple in 2021. And this is according to FT Partners. So it is a very, very, we believe, lucrative market. Of course, everyone has to do their own due diligence, but also a highly growth-oriented industry. Again, how do we look at our company for value? We look at sentiment. We are getting great reviews, great articles written by us. There's great opportunities. Social chat, feedback has been really great. How do we measure our success as well is by revenue, ARPU, how we manage our expenses, and our strategic ROI. That's in the middle, and that is a upcoming part of our business, because we have to focus on sentiment and user growth first. If we have high growth, we have opportunities. Remember, we have 600 vendors already on board. So we have opportunities as we grow our user base to bring new opportunities to create revenue to the table. So we focus also on user growth, subscription models, SaaS programs, and challenger financial services. The enterprise value will help us drive revenue and sentiment. So we're focused on growth first, creating great products, great growth, and then driving revenue. So if I could give you 3 things to remember about us when you walk away today, I'd ask you to remember that the market, our reach, and the market is relevant, and our services are relevant to 100% of the online market. And we believe digital identity is vital to its continued growth. We have a unique business approach. We have a 3-pronged business approach. One, to consumers or holders or users, that we give them our services for free, so that they don't have to think about our services. We have a way to aggregate digital identity and digital services from all over the internet into one mobile app. And then we can help monetize those opportunities and give them benefits through our vendor programs, who will give them cash back and better services and better deals, because they are real people. And that is scalable. Again, we're all cloud-based. None of the software that is data sensitive is stored on the phone. So if anything is ever compromised, everything's recoverable in the cloud, and it's all biometrically controlled. So we have unique ways to create revenue through also issuers, SaaS-based models, and verifier SaaS-based models. So we're holistic in our approach to digital identity. And then the last item I'd like you to remember is that we have an experienced team that has successfully exited deals. We've had great growth stories and opportunities. We've been around for a long time, and we've built successful operations. I'd like to thank you for listening to me today. And Anna, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. We have quite a few questions, so let's get into it.
Sure.
Someone's asking, they're saying we hear a lot of noise about COVID testing, which we do, and vaccine passports. So where does Liquid Avatar stand on all of this?
Well, that's a really good question, Anna. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier on, we're part of healthcare networks and organizations that are focused on this. We've made announcements that we're working with companies in Canada initially, like Vector Labs, that is a testing lab in Canada, and we're also involved with a number of healthcare ecosystems to produce credentials for COVID vaccination. We believe that ideally the best way, and I'm double vaccinated, and I don't have a card, I have an email from the Ontario government, but we believe the best way to be able to efficiently allow people to move freely and gain access is through a verifiable credential, and we're part of a number of teams that are providing those and creating those for the economies.
So how important do you think digital identity is going forward into the world?
Wow. I think it's vastly important. Australia is already issuing digital credentials for birth certificates. So every baby born in Australia will have their own verifiable credential or digital credential as a birth certificate. It won't be paper or laminated based anymore. I think digital identity, I've expressed it a number of times, is really the 4th major opportunity to reach 100% of the market. Digital identity will touch us. Everything for our homes, we'll be able to get into our homes or cars. I mean, if anyone uses, Google, Google's products in their home, or Alexa in their home, is already sort of using a digital identity product to talk to devices. So we're already using digital identity. It's just, it'll grow very quickly and proliferate globally. So
we have a question about usernames and passwords and how we're always forgetting them. I can relate to that. So how is Liquid Avatar and digital identity going to help us with that problem?
Well, if you think about passwords and usernames, it should have been a system that was thrown out years ago. And if anybody has a crypto wallet account, they know that they've got a passphrase that is 14 or 17 unrelated words that they're supposed to either remember or put in a say. Come on. So at the end of the day, if you think about your biometrics, and I didn't explain this, but the reason we start with facial biometrics is if I asked everyone who's listening today to take something out of their wallet that has a biometric on it, they're likely going to take out something that has a picture. Your passport has a picture. So we start with facial recognition because it's the easiest place to verify data from. If we asked you to produce a driver's license and or passport, and we did a verification through various bureaus to make sure that was you, we'd be able to come back with a positive result. So we start with facial recognition. We can then add fingerprint. We can add voice print. We can add all those things based on a baseline of your facial recognition. So using facial recognition and a verifiable credential, we can create replacements for passwords and usernames. So you never have to remember anything because your face is your memory.
Well, here's a great question that about that as well. So how often does the facial identity get updated and checked? What if a person has a beard and then shaves, or glasses and then takes them off? So how does that work?
Well, let me start by probably one of the most interesting questions we get on top of that is, what if I change the color of my hair? Mm-hmm. Now, that might be a little more gender biased, but what happens, or change my hairstyle? Facial recognition works on mapping your face at various points, distance between the eyes, where your ears are, the placement of your nose. I mean, it doesn't really work on hair. It works on known factors that don't really change. So every time you go into the system, we're remapping based on information that's already in existence to see if there are any minor nuances or can we make the authentication better. So we don't use our own facial recognition program. We use commercial, best in class services because I don't think our shareholders want us spending all our funds on creating a facial recognition program when there are amazing programs already out there. At the same time, for privacy, we're working on systems where we don't save your image, we just save the map. So I think we can be confident that facial recognition today has about a 99.9 to some degree success rate. So we're comfortable that even if you grow a beard or a mustache, and I had a COVID beard and the system still recognized me. I don't have it today.
Okay.
And my first bad haircut, right? Everybody got their own personal first bad haircut in the house when COVID came along. So my team used that picture for a while, and I've hopefully cleaned up a little bit, and the system still works for me.
Or facial recognition with masks on. That didn't work.
No, it's and you'll notice that even if you travel, they ask you to take your mask off, or if they need to do something. We still, that's an interesting question, Anna, because if you think about it, and the easiest one to and it's not, I'm really not a big drinker, but I use liquor store because it's the easiest one to use. If you walk into a liquor store and you present your credential, they look at the credential, they look at you, they look at the date of birth, and they go, okay, well, how really good is that? At the end of the day, do they need to know your address? So digital credentials really just tell them that you're over 21 and this is your information, and the system accepts it or not accepts it. So we really can increase the ability to be safer and more secure. That's a very simple example. But again, as much as, we sort of, discount it, we really don't want minors who may not have the right mindset, buying liquor and potentially, driving and causing issues. I mean, so it really is, and again, that's a small piece, but we want to ensure that safety and security is in place, and digital credentials help do that both personally and in society.
David, who would you consider competition in this space? What other companies are doing this with a similar model? And could you be considered an acquisition candidate for them?
Okay, so that's a number of questions. So I would ask everybody to go to trustoverip.org. Trustoverip.org. That's the Trust Over IP Foundation, the part of the Linux Foundation. And I would encourage everyone to go to the member section. And you're going to see the steering committee. You're going to see a number of different committees. And we're on that steering committee, I think, beside MasterCard or IBM. And so we think of this industry very much like the nascent industry of the internet, that there are complementers, cooperators, and competitors. And there are times where all of us work together, all of us bid separately, all of us work apart. But what's very interesting about the Trust Over IP Foundation, sorry, my dog is barking, I apologize. That's one of those things when working from home. But in the Trust Over IP Foundation, some of the other foundations that we belong to, you're going to see competitors and you're going to see complementers. And really the market is so large. If anyone thinks that Google is the only search engine out there, surprise, they're not. And if anyone thinks Yahoo is a search engine, surprise, they're not. They're powered by Bing and used to be powered by Google. So there's a lot of in this industry spawns complementers, cooperators, and competitors. So there are companies, but there's nobody like us. We have taken a very different stance because we have focused on the consumer first. So we're at our core a consumer to business organization, where most firms and that you would consider competitors to ours would be consultants and consulting firms that work with issuers. We work with issuers in a different way, but we start with consumers because we believe at the end of the day, the consumer is in charge of their identity and all their credentials, which makes us unique. And lastly, do I think that we're ripe for acquisition as we grow? I think that is a definite possibility. It is a consideration that we keep at the forefront, and we're looking at the industry very carefully because our job is to give the best return to our shareholders as possible. And if we grow and we can leverage up, we will look at that very seriously.
Thank you for that. So you have a healthy cash position, but is it sufficient to get you to cash flow positive, or do you need to raise more money?
The answer is our last MD&A, our management discussion and analysis, showed that we are going to need to spend more money. So the key is, again, we're not raising money like Trulio did. They just raised $400 million in this industry. But I believe that we will. We're in the midst right now of a warrant exercise program and an early warrant exercise program. If that comes to fruition the way we would hope, we may not have to raise capital short term, but we are always on the lookout for good equity partners. And we don't have anything on the go today at this time, but right offer, right time, we would be foolish not to consider any good offer that came to the table. But we are focused on growth right now, and I, to be quite candid and honest with those online and our shareholders, that will require additional capital, and that's why we're doing our early warrant exercise now.
Great. What are your main monetizing activities currently?
Aside from focusing on growth, we're really trying to now convert our users to interact with our vendors, because our vendors will pay us a portion of transaction. We're expanding our SaaS programs for our issuers to start bringing issuers on board, and I think the news flow will provide some recognition for that in the coming weeks and months, as well as we are focused on our verifier SaaS model, which will take several months to come to fruition, but we believe could have high value revenue growth.
So what are the steps that one would take to get started creating their digital identity with your company?
It's so simple. Go to the Apple App Store or Google Play and go to Liquid Avatar and download our app. It's that simple. And I will tell everyone that we launched our app in February in 4 phases, which are now completed. We've just gone through a major analysis. We've done this before in building apps. We've gone through a major analysis to find out what people love and what they don't love so much. And we are now making a series of changes over the summer months so that when university students start going back to school in the fall, we'll be ready with our campus programs.
Great. So how many users do you currently have? And do you have different levels of service for users?
Well, again, all our users get all our services for free. Again, I think we talked about that. And the reason we do that is so that we don't have any barrier to use. I think that's the simplest way to think about it. And we have English, French, and Spanish right now. And we are adding, I think, up to another 20 languages. And so there aren't really different levels of use. As users go through our system, they can identify themselves further depending on the requirement. and that would be the only level of service. You might have an initial identity of just facial recognition and then move to full identity. And there's two different levels of full identity. One is what we call ID level 2, which proves that you are you. And the third one is a bank grade that would qualify for our Visa product or any financial services. That requires a proof of residence as well. And these are very standard procedures, and we work with recognized outside agencies to provide those services. In our pilot program, we have, at last measure, we announced 13,000, but it is much more than that. Again, phase one for us was getting out there, testing the product. This fall is where we really ramp up. Q3 is where we really start ramping up our user base. And we've built programs before that have had hundreds of millions of users. So this isn't new to us, but it does take time and it does take energy, and you've got to have the right combination of product and service to grow your user base.
So what's to stop other developers from doing what you're doing? Do you have intellectual patents?
Let me start by saying, if anyone's ever applied for a patent, it's an arduous process that takes about 5 years. We started off looking at patents, and we did do initial patent filing, but we felt that the industry was moving so quickly that intellectual property was really in how we brand ourselves and how we get out to the market. And if I take some notable companies, while they do have, over time, they do have intellectual property, such as patents. You know, when Facebook started or YouTube started, they didn't have patents. They just built a business. We're focused on building user base. As I mentioned, this market is massive. At valuations, we don't need to capture all of the market. We just have to focus in our lane and grow. We have to deal with consumers that will have multiple wallets and multiple credentials. You think about this, each bank will want you to have potentially your own wallet, your own credential. Governments, you might have hundreds, if not thousands of credentials. How do you manage all of them? Right now, Liquid Avatar, as we know it, and again, we would say to everybody, do your own due diligence, is the only solution out there that allows you accurately and effectively aggregate your digital identity.
So someone's asking, besides the mobile app, how much of this platform is up and running? And give us a little time frame of what's happening in the near future for your global functionality and your national reach.
Sure. So our product is open globally. We have no barriers to entry on our product. Anyone can use it globally. We are adding digital credentials as we go. The first one should be available by early July. Our issuer programs are already underway. As I said, we've already announced our first COVID or testing partnership, and that'll go beyond COVID, well beyond COVID. But we do have a number of other partnerships for our issuer programs that we will announce, and we are in very early days of our verification program. That will come on stream later this year. But in Q3, our SaaS modeling program, we expect for issuers will come on board, and our consumer program is already live and in market.
Do you plan to uplist? And if so, how soon?
I mean, when we did this reverse takeover in Canada of an existing company last June, it came with a gray market listing. We've just got our OTCQB listing. It will depend on shareholder base, valuation, market sentiment. I don't think we can predict a time frame for uplisting at this time.
Someone wants some clarity about NFTs. Can you explain how you will realize revenue in that space?
Sure. We have based on our backgrounds, I've done a lot of work in sports and entertainment, and based on Liquid Avatars, the avatars themselves starting their journey as NFTs. We didn't continue with them because of some of our privacy technology barriers to ensure that, and security. We had a lot of interest from parties asking us if we'd support the NFT programs, and we have a division called Oasis Digital Studios that does do that. We are in the midst of launching a number of programs now. So again, for us, Q3 is focusing very definitively on revenue. So we expect to have results from our NFT strategy, or we like to call it now our digital collectible strategy, in Q3.
Really great presentation. We have one last question. We have a bunch more questions, but we're running out of time. So we'll send these directly to you, David. Last important question. Please talk about that collection behind you. Everyone's very curious about your Star Wars, Spider-Man, Monopoly.
I'm personally Star Wars. Absolutely. Fan, so I love it's Yoda. The one that I always get. And people will end up trolling all this product online. So when I was a little boy, I remember at 5 years old, my parents giving me 25 cents a week to be able to go out and buy 2 comic books. I was hooked. And my father took me to a store. I couldn't have been more than 7. Took me to a store in Toronto, gave me $1 and said, go in and buy comic books. And my dad was a collector. So I became a really big comic book collector and have been. And that extends into pop culture. So at my heart, I'm a Trekkie. And a Spider-Man fan. Star Wars is I'm happy with, but I'm a kid from the 60s, so Star Trek's a little more important. But I did have the unique pleasure of being friends with Stan Lee when he was alive, and I did a lot of work for the Marvel movies, including the Avengers movies, and I developed technology that was used by Disney and IMDb. I did the first chat with Keanu Reeves for John Wick, Loki, Tom Hiddleston, done some work with Chris Hemsworth, who is Thor. Very fortunate to have a very unique background, starting from very humble beginnings. But everyone loves my collection. Usually if I'm on Zoom at an interview, I've got a green screen up. I've got a portable green screen, but I'm a pop culture collector, and this is just a small smattering of what we're doing. And it really sort of prepared us, and that gave us the impetus for the creativity behind Liquid Avatar and the avatars. And we're working, as many would know, we're working with comic book industry professionals. And I would say, if I could give a shameless plug, look out for our San Diego Comic-Con presentation on July 24th. It's virtual, but it'll be a sneak peek on some of the things we're bringing out this fall that are related to Liquid Avatar.
Thank you so much, David. Great presentation. We certainly look forward to all of your updates. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Anna. It was a real pleasure, and all the best to everyone out there.
All right. Well, remember, everyone, you're going to experience a black screen for a brief moment as we move to our next presenter, but stay with us because we're coming right back.